Good evening everybody, welcome to the studio this evening. I'm just getting set up for the stream, and the locomotive that's going to get put into this onto this material. So I'm going to decide on some colours. And incidentally, I hope I've got enough layers out. Good evening, welcome to the studio this evening. So I'm going to need some. What am I going to need? I'm going to need. Where's my reference image gone? I'm going to need some red, some blue, some black, some silver, and green, and things like that. So. Red and the green I'll come back to in a minute. Silver, well, grey will do for silver, and black, that's brown, that's brown, that's black. Now I need some blue for the locomotive. That will do. That's about clearly near enough anyway. And some gold sort of colour. Things like the steam whistle. And I will need some various other colours around, but we'll see how we go with those. I'm going to need sort of some colours like white and things like that for the steam, but we'll deal with those later. I'm actually going to need some lighter blue as well. Well, there's some lighter blue. That was quite convenient. There is a pussycat here which is trying to get onto. He wants to be in shot. No. I'm just having a look to decide if I want yellow rather than gold, but I think the gold looks better. Okay, well, we shall see how this goes. And my tiny scissors have gone walkies, so I shall deal without them for the moment. Good evening everybody. So this locomotive is a steam locomotive. It's what's called an A4 class, or A4 Pacifics, or also coronation class as well, I believe, because they were done for things like coronations. This one is Mallard, which holds the steam land speed record at 125-126 miles per hour, which is quite fast. Now then, I am thinking what to start with. I'm doing it in the blue livery rather than the green, which came later. I've been reading about this afternoon. So I'm going to start. Well, let's start with the wheels, for want of a better place to start. That camera looks a little bit out of focus, but it might get more in focus in a minute. Right, so I'm going to start with red. On this particular livery, the insides of the wheels are red, which you can't really see on the reference image, but it is there, at least for these 5 wheels. The one at the back seems to be black. Now what you're looking at here, in case you think the writing's backwards or the numbers, is you're looking at the back of the piece, which is something that almost always catches me out. Is I was looking at it and thought, oh, I've done it backwards, until I remembered this is the back. When it gets turned over, that writing will be the correct way around. I'm not altogether sure I'll actually be able to get the writing in, but we'll get something that sort of looks right, like writing. The actual sort of pixel density of this stuff is not fantastic. And this is another instance, for those that were watching last night, where patience is required. Getting that cotton to go through that loop, just so that you can pull it through that little hole, is interesting at times. Now I'm going to change my glasses so I can see a little bit better. So how are you doing, Laser? I don't think we've seen you for a little while. Or have you just been lurking in stream? There we go, I can see a bit clearer now. So let me let me move these other colours out of the way. Now the pussycat, which is just off frame at the moment, is here because he wants to sit in my chair. And he's rather disappointed that he can't, because I'm sat in my chair. 1, 2, 3. This is a variable depth needle, so just choosing the depth I want it to be at. I don't think I'm going to get very fancy with this particular one. When I did the other locomotive, I did vary the surface a little bit, so it was contoured. I think for this one I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it as a straight flat image. It's a little bit easier to do, takes less concentration. Yep, just get on with it. So it is just a matter of making sure that runs freely, and I'll try and keep this in frame. I'm just driving this needle now through the through this material, which probably wants to be a little bit tighter. So I'm just going to stretch it a little bit by pulling it through this hoop. For doing this, it does help if the material is quite stretched. Not enough to distort it, but just enough to keep it a bit like a drum. And I will support it with my hand underneath. Let's see how this goes. And it's just a simple matter of doing this for several hours to fill in all the between all the lines. Once I've done a little bit of this, I'll turn it over and I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. But at the moment, I'm just creating a few loops really, and until there's more in place, it'll look quite untidy on the other side. But as more and more loops go in, they start to support each other, and you start to be able to see the picture then on the other side as well. Okay, now I need to move positions, so what I'm going to do is just cut that thread off. At least the scissors are nice and sharp, which helps. So now what I'm doing here is the spokes. This can be extremely relaxing, especially if you're feeling a little bit stressed, because punching holes in things always seems to be a good way of calming down. Now there's no specific way of doing this, it's literally just a case of colouring in between the lines. I prefer to turn the work around as I'm doing it, just because it's easy to work in certain directions with the pen, but there's no particular reason for it. So this isn't going to be fantastically detailed. As I mentioned, it doesn't. The material doesn't really lend itself to a really high level of detail. It's sort of in the equivalent of about 10 or 15 pixels per inch, if you're familiar with sort of computer graphics. Of course, the trick with doing it is to get in enough detail, or the right detail, for people to recognise what it is that you're doing. And generally speaking, this particular shape of locomotive, and the fact it's blue, will be enough for most people to recognise it as Mallard. In fact, usually what happens, I gather, is that people misidentify any blue locomotive like this as being Mallard. I think there was something like about 15 or 20 locomotives. You like the trains? Yeah. Sort of. I like the shapes, and I do play Train Simulator, and I do like driving the trains, but that's kind of I don't go out sort of to railway lines and look at them and things like that. Okay. I keep looking at a reference picture that I've got to one side of me if you wonder what I'm looking at off screen. So I kind of enjoy the shapes of them. Layers are. I mean, as an artist, if you like, that's one of the things that you tend to look at a lot is things like shapes and aesthetically. Some of them look look really nice. And you can certainly get some really nice pictures based on locomotives. If you look at kits which get you Punchcraft, you can get as kits as well. If you want to try kits out. A lot of them are things like cats and dogs and quite sort of scenes of that sort of style, if you like. And so trying to do something like a locomotive is also quite an interesting diversion, really. I hold it down when I'm pulling the needle up, because otherwise what will happen is it will pull the loop out from the other side and I'll have to start again. So I'll just give you an indication of what it at the moment it just looks like a big blob, and the focus wants somewhere. There we go. But once I put some black in between that, you'll then start to see a little bit of the definition of the spokes that I've just done. But whilst I've got the red here in the punch, what I'm going to do is just carry on and do some more of the red on the wheels, and then I'll put the black in and we'll fill the gaps in. Now I've just realised I haven't drawn a spoke at this particular point, so I'll just put the edge of one in. So never done this locomotive before, never done it in Punchcraft, so I'm sort of making up how to do it as I go along. There's a large area of red just down here. It's a counterbalance on the wheel, so that the wheels are actually balanced like you do on a car. But in this particular case it's because there's a drive crank on the wheel, which is at the moment hidden out of sight. But this huge red area here counterbalances that. so that they don't get vibration. I think I might move that light in a little bit just to put it a bit further over the top of this piece. It's looking a little bit dark on camera. So just as soon as I've done this section, okay, let's just move this light. That should help a little bit. Now, these may not be 100% accurate colours. There's only a limited colour palette available, so if anybody is looking at this who knows what the colours should be and are looking at it and going, "You're using the wrong colour," yeah, I probably am. But I am using the only colour that's available to me, so I'm picking the nearest-ish. Now I am making sure I keep my fingers out of the way from underneath. Although this needle is reasonably sharp, it's not like a hypodermic needle, which would be very, very sharp. If I push it hard enough, I would sort of jab myself quite unpleasantly, but it's a bit like a sort of a pin that you might get on a badge or something like that. Sort of is enough to hurt you if you sort of jab it in. So I do try and make sure my fingers underneath, which are supporting this material, do sort of stay out the way. and I'm just supporting the material because it just makes it a little bit easier to punch through if it's reasonably taut in the area that the needle's going through. So if anybody happens to have any questions about Punchcraft, although there's not a lot to it, or any of the other crafts that I do, which include carving, pyrography, jewellery making, scratchboard, as well as this, then you know, you're quite welcome to ask any questions that you may have about those. And although I don't do them on stream at the moment, I also do glass engraving and airbrushing, so I can also answer questions about those as well if anybody happens to have any. Although I tend to follow a pattern when I'm doing this with the needle, you don't need to. The only criteria really is that there's enough loops in a given area for it to look how you want it to look. So if you don't put enough in, you can see the white material through, which unless that's something that you actually want, then what you've got to do is just make sure you put enough loops through in any particular area to sort of fill it in. And generally speaking, that means that the loops are about 1 needle width apart. So there are quite a few loops then created that way. There'll be several thousand over a whole piece like this, and surprisingly you go through quite a lot of this thread as well. Theme Hospital, good evening, welcome to the studio this evening. I've forgotten exactly how much thread there's on one of these bobbins, something like about 15 or 30 yards or meters, and on a piece this size we'll probably go through about 10 or 15 of these bobbins, so there's one heck of a length of thread goes into one of these. Yes, it's definitely powered. Theme Hospital. It's powered by my hand. So it's a one human powered pen. So this, in actual fact, is very similar to, but not the same as, the way in which a number of rugs are made commercially. In that it's, but they use looms where there's sort of hundreds of these needles on, and they're driving it through. Tootsie Dev, thank you very much for following. That's most kind of you. I do appreciate you for you doing that. Thank you very much. Yeah, when they make some rugs and some carpets, they have thousands of these all in a long row, and they drive them through and move them backwards and forwards, driving them through the backing material of the carpet or the rug, creating loops just like this does here. And sometimes, depending on the effect that they're after, they'll either cut the loops on the other side so they're no longer loops, or they'll leave them as they are. And they do sort of tens of thousands of stitches per second. Those machines really fly. I'm nowhere near as fast. Okay, that's another one of the wheels done in red. And again, when I turn it over, it'll just look like another red blob until we get some of the black in between, which we'll do as soon as we finish the wheels on the two smaller wheels that lead the engine. Okay. That's a bit. Okay, just trying to work out what you can and can't see around here. Is that wheel done? Just the front one now, and then we can change colour. Surprisingly, this takes rather more concentration than you might think from looking at it. Mainly because what I'm trying to do is keep the stitches or the loops an even distance apart from each other. Make sure that the coverage on the other side is reasonable once the thing's complete. Plus, I'm also trying not to stab my finger. Which is always a good thing to avoid. If you do end up not putting enough loops in on one particular place, it's not the end of the world. It's easy enough to just add extra ones afterwards if necessary. Let's have a look. Sorry, I'm not keeping up particularly on chat tonight. Okay, I was going to say that's good, Lazar, because I've not dropped any frames yet tonight. But you never know. Twitch sometimes does have the odd twitch. Fear Reaper 7, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. So this is what I should have been doing last night if I'd have had the enough time to prepare this particular piece of material with this image on top of it. It takes a little while to do that, so rather than rushing things last night for the stream, that's why we did some jewellery. I think I'm missing a spoke in here, so I'm going to put one in. Looks like I missed drawing one, so I'll just do that. Okay, what I can do now is switch to the black, and we can fill in amongst the red, and you get to start to see how it looks on the other side. Yeah, it's surprising how much space a pussycat takes up. He's taking up all of my the space where I normally put things whilst I'm working. Never mind, at least he's sat here with me. So I'm going to thread this. It's a really long needle threader to do this with. And I know somewhere on here there is a thread. There we go. Excuse me. Okay, so we pull it through the needle, but it has to go through a little hole in the side, otherwise it won't actually work. That's the magic bit. The bit going through the side of the needle makes this whole thing work. So might as well start here at the front. Now we just fill in the spaces around the red and inside the rim. Those threads are a little bit trolly, they always get in your way. Thank you very much, Laser. It is kind of an automatic reaction, isn't it? I was actually doing that this afternoon. I was watching another streamer this afternoon that had an allergy, and at least once when she sneezed I did exactly the same thing, but I did say it out loud. Now you will actually see obviously the image develop on the back here, but it does actually look better on the front once it's done. Okay, so now you start to see on the other side what it starts to look like. Oh yeah, there's a gap there on purpose because there's a pipe. Yeah, there's a pipe that goes across there, which is why you can't see the spoke, because there's a pipe behind it. So it starts to take shape, and as we put the wheel rim in, that will also tighten this up and start to make it look more presentable. Now do the others. Lights on. It's starting to get a little bit dark in here, so just put some lights on. There's this area under here is also black. So whilst I've got black in the pen, I'm going to fill this in as well. There's both black machinery here as well as deep shadow. So what I was just checking then is that sometimes what you get is the bobbin here will stick, and it doesn't pull thread, and then what happens is as you're doing this, you start actually pulling out the loops that you've just put through. And it's not always immediately obvious. So what I was just doing then was just checking that that's whether that's was actually happening or not. I don't know what it is about cats, but if there's an easy way to get somewhere and a hard way to get somewhere, they'll always take the hard way, which is climbing over absolutely everything they can to get to a particular place, which is what Felix has just been doing at the other side of the room. sometimes it's just a little bit difficult to see where things should be. Indeed it is. Indeed it is, laser. It's also a part of what makes them annoying occasionally as well. They won't take no for an answer that they shouldn't go that way. It doesn't matter what they knock off. Whilst I'm doing this, it gives me a chance to say that if there's anybody watching that isn't following and would like to do so, then the follow button, of course, is just below the stream window, as you are probably aware. And I do appreciate everybody that follows. It's always nice to know people would like to come back and see what you're doing. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, then I do tweet when I go live as well, so it's also a way of knowing when I'm around. I don't tweet much, so it's a fairly safe thing to do if you're concerned about getting loads and loads of tweets. There's a bit of machinery or something just around the wheel here. I'm not quite sure what it is or what I can see around it, so I shall leave it for the moment and come back to that bit. And the bigger wheels are easy, mainly because there's more space. Sometimes it helps to start in a less obvious place just because of the way in which the threads, or you move the threads around. I kind of don't like stopping and starting like I have to do on these wheels. I kind of like to use a continuous thread if I can, just because it's a bit quicker. It takes a little bit to stop, cut the thread, move to a new place, etc. So I do often just try and keep going if I can, and sometimes that's just a matter of starting in the right place so that you end in the right place to continue with the next bit that you're working on. Sometimes though you've got no choice, like here. But so rather than cutting that, I'm just going to leave a loop for the moment, and I'll cut that loop off afterwards. How? Sometimes what you can also do is, like I'm just going to do here, which is very carefully just ease the needle over to a new place. Now you can only do that over a fairly small distance. But again, it's a useful time-saving tip. another wheel done. I've got a fan running just underneath the desk here and it's blowing my reference picture around. That's the middle one. Okay, that's all silver all the way. Stay. I can put it on the desk actually now that the pussycat's not here. Okay, that's that wheel done, and again you've got a little bit of definition in there. I'll do this last red one and this last one here for the moment, and then yeah, in the back here I've got some black, so I'll put some of that in, and then we can switch to the silver to do the wheel rims itself. Yeah. That's that wheel done. I'll just get rid of that black thread because it will get in the way, which will annoy me. So I'll put that to one side. Ow. And that's the black done. Now we can switch to the silver to do the wheels. Cyan Gamer, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Thank you for dropping by. So that's the back. It doesn't look as quite as good on the front just at the moment, but as we add more and more it will start to look a lot better. What I'm about to do now is outline the wheels in a silver. And I'm just wondering if I've got a darker grey as well. If not, I've got something that will work as a dark grey. Ah yes, I do have a dark grey, that's good. Because I've got a darker grey, I can do part of the wheels in a slightly darker grey, which will give them a little bit more definition. Now come on thread, you are going to go through that thread out whether you want to or not. There you go. Told you. Okay, so I might as well start at the back and work my way forwards. Oops. Okay, there you are. Have a good evening. Thank you for dropping in. Have a good night. And yes, I will have fun. It is quite fun doing this. Sometimes get lost in it quite easily. Yeah. I must be concentrating, sticking my tongue out. Oh dear. I think that's a copper pipe that goes back there, but we may do it in gold a little bit later. So there, again, we now start, as you can see, it starts to add a little bit more definition into the wheels. So, do the rest. I'll put a dark grey in amongst this as well, but just not for the moment. narrowly missed my finger. Ow, that one didn't. It's pretty tough what you're working on, is it, Fear Reaper? What is it you're working on now then? I think you were keeping it secret day before yesterday, because you took the day off yesterday, I think, if I remember rightly. Oh yes, of course, we were discussing science fiction themed ideas, and you never did say what you'd come up with. Oh dear. Is there something else that's going to have my name on it again, Fear Reaper? Not that I mind if that's the case, but you really ought to do some things for yourself as well. Those of you who are watching that maybe don't know, Fear Reaper has now done 3 different art pieces. Specifically, well, he has sort of done them specifically for me, but I didn't know about them. He's done 2 moving images of the Zaragan art being chipped out of a block of wood, which were absolutely fantastic, and he's done a static picture based on Lord of the Rings with a single ring with Zaragan art in glowing lettering on it, which is absolutely amazing. And Fear Reaper, if you want to post a link to any of those, you're quite welcome to do so. Show people what you've been doing. Okay. One of my guidelines is missing for around here, so I shall have to do it freehand without a guideline. Ah, good, okay. Well, there you go, folks. If you want to see, you need to ask. Right, this front wheel now. Um, I guess they're going to miss out on some excellent art then, Fear Reaper. Either or they've seen it before. Let me move that mouse out of the way before I end up clicking it accidentally as well. Don't want to accidentally ban anybody by doing that. Because I have done that before now. Out of the way, cloth. Right, and there we go. That's what the wheels look like so far. You were going to go to Amsterdam tomorrow? Oh, that's a pity. I imagine you were looking forward to that. At least I hope you were. I've still got the autofocus turned on. I thought that was going a bit silly. But anyway, sorry, I was just looking at something. The colours look a little off on this, and it's probably something to do with the fact that it's such a white canvas that the webcam is actually struggling a little bit. Okay, well that's a pity not going, but that's something to look forward to another time. Fear Reaper, visiting family, always a nice thing to do. Anyway, oh well, I hope it gets better soon. Gets better soon. I mean, I know a broken leg takes quite a few weeks to repair, but so you won't go. But so I hope she gets better soon. It mends quickly. Some people it does, and other people it takes a little while. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, what I was going to say is it's now 10:15, and I've outlined the wheels with the silver. And there's a dark grey to go amongst in some places as well, which is the inside bit of the wheel, as opposed to the face side, which will add a little bit of dimensionality to it. But as you can see now that we're starting to put the extra threads in, the pattern tightens up a little bit, or the picture tightens up a little bit, and you start to see things a little bit more like they're supposed to be. But as you can see, you can't really get a lot of detail in with these. I mean, quite literally the that black around there looks just a little bit. Yeah, I might have to do some more black in there. Some of the loops have pulled back and they're really low against the material, but we'll sort that out later. The smallest detail you can get is one loop, and just one loop sort of would tend to hide amongst most of this stuff. So you need a reasonable amount of detail. So that's why Punchcraft as a whole isn't particularly detailed, even though you think because you're punching a needle through, you can punch it through exactly where you want. It just doesn't show up. For example, I know we're going to put a nameplate in here, Mallard. I will try and get some of the lettering, but it won't actually look much. It'll look sort of like a blurred sort of thing when we get to doing that, but we'll see. Anyway, as I mentioned, it's 10:15. That's about the end of it for today. Thank you all for watching. If there's anybody that is watching that isn't following, I do obviously encourage you to do so. I do appreciate everybody that does. Absolutely fantastic to know people would like to come back and see what you're doing. If you just would like to be notified and don't trust Twitch to do it, you're quite welcome to follow me on Twitter. It's @ZeroGanart, and the details are below the stream window, but they'll also be on the end plate in a moment. Other than that, if you'd just like to catch me tomorrow, which is when my next stream is, it's 8 PM UK time, 1900 hours GMT, or whatever time zone you're in now. 2¼ hours ago would have been 8 PM in the UK, so that time tomorrow evening. Thank you all for watching. It's been a little bit I've been a little bit quiet on this stream, but it's nice to have a chill out and just relax to do some artwork. Thank you all for watching again. See you later. Bye bye.